The politics of fear, lethal, contagious. Anxiety engulfing continent after continent, panicking the poor. This, a food stampede, Kibera slum, Nairobi, last Friday. The COVID-19 open season for heavy-handed policing. Tear gas and truncheons, threats, beatings and humiliation. Quarantines, curfews, discrimination. Riots in crowded jails. In Pakistan, doctors and paramedics, alarmed about working without even basic protection, hit with batons, arrested. For autocratic leaders, Corona's presented a pretext to stifle dissent and consolidate power. Civil liberties forfeited in the name of the greater good. Even Kim Jong-un's clamping down, as if that were possible, in North Korea. He's commanding the pandemic response there, while still finding time to loose off a barrage of missiles this morning. Autocrats love a good pandemic. Xi Jinping demonstrated how it could be done, invasive surveillance at the cutting edge of his high-tech authoritarian response. Drones, censorship, mass isolation. Some 21st century strongmen shrugged at first, prioritizing their economies. Trump initially called the virus a hoax, then blamed China, before claiming total authority yesterday. Brazil's Bolsonaro branded the reaction as hysteria. The Belarusian president dismissed global alarm as mass psychosis. Others made audacious power grabs. Hungary's parliament handed Prime Minister Viktor Orban power to rule by decree indefinitely. Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen also granted sweeping emergency powers. Dissenters face 10 years in jail. Protests against Vladimir Putin's latest power grab stifled by Corona. And the newly extended lockdown in India is proving handy for Narendra Modi, ending weeks of protest. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte granted special emergency powers, surprised no one when he issued a shoot-to-kill order to security forces faced with unruly curfew violators.
I will not hesitate. My orders are sa police pati military, pati mga barangay, na pagka ginulo at nagkaroon ng okasyon na lumaban at ang buhay ninyo ay nalagay sa alanganin, shoot them dead.
Filipino reporters have covered the policing of Manila's slums. Now locked down labyrinths of squalor, where Duterte's deadly drugs war has not let up, despite the outbreak. This man wasn't wearing a face mask and had a quarantine pass belonging to someone else. In another slum, hungry residents turned up at what they thought would be a food distribution. Instead, it turned into a hunger protest, which was raided by police. 21 were arrested and face up to 6 months in prison. Inmates in the Philippines' jam-packed jails, the world's most overcrowded correctional system, aren't tested for coronavirus. They're a COVID-19 time bomb. An additional 26,000 people have now been arrested for curfew violations.
The situation has become increasingly authoritarian before this coronavirus came about, and even more now under the public health emergency. You're going to see more protests from the people, and I am afraid that the government will respond with its typical mindset of clamping down, and that can only result in more human rights violations and more repression.
Taking a cue from their president's dog whistle politics, his sadistic enforcers punished 2 children who'd violated curfew by forcing them into a coffin. And here, 5 teenagers were locked into a dog cage. This new architecture of repression hasn't gone global just yet. But the virus has lent legitimacy to authoritarians. The age of intrusion is dawning, where surveillance, data harvesting, checkpoints and enforcement are deemed permissible, and liberties once taken for granted are lost.